And I'm one of the team members, part of the Evmos bridge proposal, and I'm here with Thad.
Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm Thad. I'm also on the ChainHub team, and we're going to go through our bridge proposal here.
Awesome. So for a little bit of context, we want to give you some background on why we're building what we're building and what prompted us to solve this problem. So one of the most important things for Evmos to continue to grow and to get more user adoption is for people to be able to have paths to enter the ecosystem. And with Nomad, there was that, but since the hack, there have been several different issues, including liquidity fragmentation and difficulty in user onboarding that have really stifled the growth of the ecosystem. And so with our bridge proposal and the bridge that we intend to build, we want to address those issues by, number one, implementing as many paths as possible from the highest TVL ecosystems in all blockchains into Evmos. So to effectively make it easier for everyone to get into Evmos in as fast and as easy of an experience as possible. And so our proposal to do that is to implement a liquidity network architecture, and to implement the most chains that we can into it. And so with this liquidity network architecture, we're not going to use minting and burning. We're going to leverage native assets. And this extensibility enables us to connect to more chains than you could with the minting and burning. And it also allows us to leverage some interesting verification methods that are proven and effective. And so to continue, the product that we intend to build will be a cross-chain liquidity and a messaging network. It will power seamless native swaps. It will be non-custodial, decentralized, and secure. And with the liquidity network architecture, and since there's no minting and burning of funds, we have to rebalance the liquidity since there's single-sided liquidity pools, which we'll get into in the bridge architecture. And that will be managed by an autonomously implemented algorithm, or an algorithm that controls an autonomously run system, which rebalances the cross-chain liquidity, optimizing for capital efficiency. In addition to that, the protocol will be composable, so any developer, any dApps will easily be able to tap into the liquidity of the entire network and leverage cross-chain swaps, and it will be interoperable. The goal is to expand to every network that has enough traction and user demand for us to support it, and to ultimately add as many and make it as easy as possible for any user to onboard into the Evmos ecosystem.
Awesome. Really great job explaining kind of our initial stance on everything. I'll go ahead and walk y'all through the architecture here. So as AB mentioned, he already kind of walked y'all through some of the liquidity network, how it's different than a mint and burn bridge, things like that. If we go take a look down here, you can kind of see this. I'll try and zoom in a little bit. This diagram at a high level shows what's going on and how the protocol functions. At the heart and center of everything is kind of coined the term or went after Fort Knox, but the Knox relayer. This is basically your hub for all the messages and all the transactions that go through the network. This is going to initiate everything, receive all the data, and pass it forward to the multisigs and monitor all the vault pool or the vaults here. So taking a look at this right now, we have both a vault on each endpoint of every single network, which is just going to be a vault smart contract. This is where you're going to actually deposit your funds if you want to initiate a cross-chain transfer. And we also, on each endpoint of the network, have a multisig and the validators that are signers on that multisig. Now, the only thing that'll have signing authority over the vault contracts is the multisig. This is what makes the network decentralized, meaning that AB and I or anyone in ChainHub or anyone on the core team of this does not have access or custody of any funds in the network. And that's obviously really important in this space. We really want to emphasize that. Just the way I'll walk y'all real quick through a transaction here, a simple cross-chain swap would be you deposit your funds on on Vault, let's say on Polygon, when you deposit your funds, you're going to specify one of two things. One being the destination network, where you want your assets, where you want your assets to go, or to be able to get your assets, and then also what asset you want on that destination chain. As this is a multi-asset network, so you can go, for example, right here, let's say you want to get USDT on Avalanche, and you start on Polygon with USDC. So you deposit your USDC, and then you have those. You would select that on a UI. We can show you all a demo of that here in another week or two once we have everything cleaned up. But some of this will make more sense. It'll be pretty straightforward through the UI. But once you deposit that, the relayer, which is mining the contracts, will pick that up. And what the relayer will do is it will actually take those transaction parameters along with the transaction proof and pass that to the multisig. So it'll propose that transaction. And what the validators will do is they will go take the source, something called a block header. For those of you familiar with how blockchains works, each block has a block header with some data attached to that block number, a root hash, as well as a few other things. We take the proof that the relayer has submitted in the proposed transaction and the parameters, and the validators will independently check that against the block header on the source chain. If they got true and the proof is correct, the validator thinks the transaction happened, it signs off that the transaction happened. Once we've received a consensus on that, a majority of the multi-sig validators have signed off on that, then the relayer actually goes and executes that transaction and you get your funds. And that's it. Right then and there, you've completed a cross-chain swap and received your native asset on the other one. Think of this as more of a crediting and debiting system, more of an accounting-based system rather than your traditional mint and burn. Here we've got some stuff as well, going through some of the rebalancing. As we mentioned, something we've been working on is the pendulum algorithm. Effectively, what that does is it gives us, based on a few different parameters, weighted at different numbers, what each target vault allocation should be on each endpoint. So the pendulum algorithm just basically says, hey, Evmos vault should have, 50 grand right now, and Polygon should have, 50 grand as well. It just specifies the exact amount that we want at each endpoint. And after a certain threshold, we'll set what's called a hyperparameter, which is basically a constant in these algorithms that says, hey, after a vault is 5% off its, let's just say that, sorry, I'll clarify. Let's just say that that's 5% right now. If a vault's more than 5% off of its target allocation, the vault pool managers will go pick that up and we'll go through that same verification process again, except since we're moving funds outside the network and back in, the multisig here will execute a transaction through an external bridge protocol, something like the likes of Layer 0, Composable. There's talks of Nomad coming back online. It could be Nomad. And then we'll move the funds back into the network. And this goes through that same verification process that was just mentioned. There's no override or anything like that. So that's kind of a little overview of what's going on in the relayer network and how everything works. There's some more details in here. This document will be posted on the proposal too. So no worries if you feel like you missed anything like that. Here's another just brief diagram of effectively like how some of the relayer works. I just kind of walked you all through all this, so I don't think we need to go over it again. As well as the algorithm. We can kind of get more into the algorithm here. So as you can kind of see, effectively what we'll have these Vault Health bots, which will be monitoring the full network at all times, similar to the relayer, how it's monitoring everything, except where the relayer is just passing raw data. These Vault Health bots will be running that algorithm that we just mentioned and checking to see if the network's balanced or not. Now, if something's unbalanced, like I just mentioned, we take you through that same transaction workflow. Just this time, rather than just crediting and debiting assets to users, we're moving funds through external bridge protocols. So it's a different contract call. There's a few technical things on the back end that will actually function differently. But in terms of the way the network actually handles and does those transactions, everything's the same. We just interface with other bridge protocols and route through them and then bring them back into the network. But the verification process and all that's the exact same until the network's healthy, and then yeah, it just happens again. And this is really important. This is kind of what AP mentioned with a managed liquidity network. This is going to really help users increase their LP returns and make the network overall a lot more efficient. And that's really a big problem right now, is a lot of these liquidity networks have the liquidity isolated on each endpoint. And other than some liquidity mining programs, now people are working on this. This is something people are solving. But there isn't really a great solution, not like this, where your funds are actually getting moved by the network for you, rather than trying to put that on the end user, which is what competitors like Stargate with Layer 0 do, is they effectively just they change how expensive it is to bridge from chain to chain and say, hey, don't bridge here. We're going to make it more expensive. It's in higher demand. So that's why we think that's going to be a game changer. And that's our kind of proposed solution at a high level. Here's another workflow chart on how some of this goes. We just kind of went into that, so I'm probably not going to go over that again here. And as well as the security architecture, this initial method was pioneered by Layer 0. We're implementing it a little bit differently, rather than kind of going and creating our own decentralized Oracle network from scratch. Think like Chainlink. That's what Layer 0's done. They've made a bunch of complex contract interfaces and have a really, really chunky code base because of that. One of the things we're trying to do is have less, really try to minimize our on-chain code, make the code base as efficient as possible, just because more smart contract code, more solidity is more smart contract risk. And the more code you have, the more that risk increases. There's not really much you can do about that. Unfortunately, that's just something that happens in the space, but that's kind of what we're doing to minimize our risk there. And so rather than going and using that Oracle network through all these contracts, we've elected to run a validator network. It's also much more malleable. We can go and expand. It's going to allow us to expand to more networks and kind of go for more and more paths a lot faster. We'll be able to do stuff faster. Layer 0, I believe, has stayed with the same I want to say 6 chains that they've launched with Stargate since launch back in early March, I believe, right, AB?
Yeah.
I want to say
Early mid-March.
Yeah, so they haven't expanded past that for a host of reasons, but that's one of them. We won't be really limited by our security, which is nice. And then if you want to go in a little bit to the roadmap.
Sure. So in Q4 2022, within the span of this year, our first deliverables are going to be launching the vault contracts, and then implementing the multi-asset support, and also getting the front end ready for the MVP. And so as we continue to build, we're going to be sharing all these updates with you through community updates. And then moving forward to the beginning of next year and through the first quarter, our goal is to launch the testnet deployment and then start setting up and working with validators to set up that network to secure the economic security of the entire bridge, and to get that going. And in addition to this, we're looking to undergo the first contract audit. And then moving forward into Q2, our goal is to launch the first live mainnet demo with 5 EVM chains. And as of now, those will be Ethereum, AVAX, BSC, Polygon, and Evmos, in addition to starting the pendulum rebalancing development and implementation. And moving forward to Q3 23, we're going to have a live mainnet beta with 7 EVM chains, which we'll look forward to sharing that with you and having you guys test the product with us. We're super excited about that. And for the live mainnet beta, we're going to look to implement Arbitrum and Optimism as well. And we're gonna look to have a pendulum rebalancing demo, or potentially having that ready, but for now a demo, and introducing a liquidity mining program, setting up the DAO, setting up all these incentives. And all of the details aren't completely fleshed out, but this is a high level roadmap of what we want to get to you, and some rough dates around when we plan on getting them to you. Yep. And so with that being said, I think that covers everything. Sorry, go for it, Thad.
Oh, no. I was just going to say we've got some good ideas we've discussed for that liquid mining program. That's actually one of the things we'd really love to talk about with the community going forward. As we mentioned, we haven't, come any final decisions, but y'all's input will be really helpful in that, the direction to take them.
Yeah, Thad, I think you cut off in the end for a bit, but basically, I think to reiterate what Thad was trying to say was, all of these decisions, we're going to involve the community, all of you guys, to help make them, and we look forward to continue to work in tandem with you guys and to build in public, and we can't wait to get started. So, Thad, you have any other final words? I think Thad cut off here, so we're going to end on this note, but thank you very much. We look forward to seeing you at more community calls, to hearing your feedback, hearing some of your recommendations, any other things you'd like to share. This doc will be posted along with the rest of the proposal, and you will also have contact information for Thad and I and the rest of the ChainHub team. So we'd like to thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you again, and to, please holler at us. We'd love to meet the rest of the community. All right. Have a good one.